It's 1800 BC, and you have this beautiful multicolored coat. Colored fabric in ancient times was so hard to make, so valuable, luxurious purple dye was worth more than its weight in gold. You have one, but 10 of your brothers don't. They are so jealous. These are the great-grandsons of Abraham, and this ignites a family feud that's going to change the course in history. Bitter betrayal followed by an epic famine that brings the Hebrew nation down to their knees and puts them on the move once again. But it seems like Abraham just got here. I'm Mr. Holt, and this is Ancient History. Welcome to Classical Kingdoms, where timeless stories reveal truth and wisdom for your journey. And the journey for you is with the Hebrew patriarchs that follow Abraham. After Abraham, imagine the struggle they were having trying to maintain this unique identity in a foreign land. For the first Abrahamic families, this was their central challenge. They were semi-nomadic foreigners living amongst sophisticated, polytheistic Canaanite cultures. Their entire story is supposed to be one of profound faith. Abraham journeying here and moving his family to start a nation someplace he's never been. And now this human weakness and the divine guidance and providence to take care of the Hebrew people. But it's not just a story about one family's faith. This is the beginning of an entire civilization. How did the family's migration to Egypt set in motion a sequence of events that will transform them from just honored guests and rulers into an enslaved Hebrew people at the mercy of the rulers of Egypt? This is lesson number 11 in your ancient history course, and we're stepping into the story of the Hebrew patriarchs and the migrations, the Canaanite kingdoms that are in this area that eventually settle in Egypt. And we're going to ask some big questions about that and try to discover how it shaped history and how it still shapes your journey too. So in this lesson first, we will discover about the patriarchs, how they struggled after Abraham and established a family that has a unique identity in a foreign world. Second, you'll learn how Abraham's great-grandson had the gift, the multicolored coat, but it brought betrayal and sends this young man on a journey from pit to palace. Third, you'll reveal a historical truth that's been hidden for millennia, but it connects this biblical story of Joseph with the Hyksos people who were conquerors of Egypt in some form. And finally, it's the interconnectivity of all these people on these trade routes and what's coming for the future migration. So I want to make you a Canaanite expert. By the end of this episode, you will level up as a classical scholar and a philosopher, and you'll be one step further in your classical journey to understand the Abrahamic people and the patriarchs. Imagine your family is living in a foreign land, surrounded by cultures and beliefs that are completely different from your own. The central struggle that you feel is, how do you hold on to the unique identity, especially when a promise is involved to keep your people together, especially a solemn promise, a covenant? Abrahamic families were a part of that covenant. They're semi-nomadic people. They're used to traveling with their livestock on trade routes. And in knowing other polytheistic cultures are around them, they maintain something separate, monotheistic beliefs. As Abraham is settling at the Oaks of Mamre in Hebron, in Canaan, along the trade route, and he purchased lands there. That was covered in a different lesson. But this continues the struggle for faith and human weakness and divine guidance. So the first big test for Abraham was his son, Isaac, preserving the family's unique covenant. Isaac was not going to get married to a local Canaanite woman who would have local Canaanite religions and beliefs. So there are a lot of Canaanite women, all different types from all these different cultures that are there. There's no one Canaanite country or king. There are so many different city-states. So Isaac is not going to assimilate into the local culture. He has to stay special. So Abraham sent his most trusted servant on a long trade route journey back to Mesopotamia. His mission was to find a wife for Isaac among their own people, his own relatives, other Hebrew people. And so the servant met a young woman at the well, and it was Rebekah. He witnessed Rebekah's incredible display of hospitality and diligence, a true sign of her excellence and virtue. She didn't just offer the stranger a drink, she offered to water all 10 of his camels. And this act of character proved that she was the right one to carry on the family legacy. And Rebekah's marriage with Isaac ensured that promise would remain distinct and a part of the Hebrew nation. The next generation is going to face another conflict that doesn't come from the outside but within. It's the life of Isaac's son, Jacob. Jacob, now that's a name I'm excited to teach you about because that name is going to change. That name is going to involve the rivalry and the struggle, but also a transformation. So wait until you hear what his name is being changed to. You will recognize that if you haven't already heard of Jacob. His lifelong struggle is actually with his twin brother, Esau. They were born Esau first, Jacob second. Esau, kind of impulsive and an outdoorsy guy, kind of a good hunter, and dad's favorite, of course. He comes back from a hunting trip and he sees his brother Jacob, who worked around the house a lot more. Jacob was actually favored by his mom. So he's a chef, he's cooking a pot of stew, and when Esau smells the stew and he sees his brother and he's like, oh, brother, I'm so hungry, you've got to hook me up. And Jacob says, well, let's make a deal. Let's make a deal. You know how you're the firstborn son? Switch places with me. Now, what does that mean? What are you talking about? You can't switch places. But the firstborn son is supposed to have the birthright. That would involve all the family responsibility, kind of the name of the family goes on with you, the birthright, and more so the wealth. These are wealthy people, and it could be up to 90% of the family wealth goes with the birthright. But we see Jacob is interested in being the family, being the covenant. Jacob offers Esau a pot of stew in exchange for the birthright. Switch places with me. Make me the firstborn son. And Esau cries out, look, I'm dying of starvation. Esau says, what good is the birthright to me now if I'm dying of starvation? Was he really? Was he really? Because Jacob's desire for the birthright was huge, and Esau's lack of interest in it, was he not taking the family responsibility seriously? And maybe he was just really hungry, but there has to be more to make this official. So later, Jacob carried out an elaborate deception with his father. His father is nearly blind, and it was time to seal the deal, to have this official ceremony, a solemn promise about the birthright. And so Jacob sneaks over in deception and disguises himself with hairy arms and kind of a smell that would be like Esau, so that when his blind father tries to touch his arm or smell to see, like, is that you, Esau? Because I think you sound like Jacob. Isaac is deceived. Jacob has deceived his dad. In fact, Jacob's name, it literally means heel grabber or deceiver. Like, he was grabbing the heel of Esau at the time of the twins being born. And deception was part of what his name. Oh, and his mom was kind of in on it. So helping the deception, Isaac unknowingly gives the official blessing and the official ceremony to the wrong son. And he says, from the dew of heaven and the richness of the earth, may God always give you abundant harvests of grain and bountiful new wine. May many nations become your servants, and may they bow down to you. May you be master over your brothers, and may your mother's son bow down to you. This is the official blessing that Jacob receives. That means he's the firstborn son now. It means he has the birthright and the family responsibility. And this is captured in this beautiful painting because it's a turning point in a family dynamic, but it's also a turning point of a nation, because Jacob's name is about to get changed. But not until he has another struggle. Well, the first struggle is he's got to get out of there. Esau finds out. Esau is consumed really by a murderous rage. Esau is out to get Jacob when he finds this out. And so they need to escape. He needs to get back on the trade route and head north. He's now exiled from the family. He's going to go to Haran, which is where the rest of the family is, the family that did not migrate down. So Jacob has left Beersheba. He heads north and he goes to Haran. And what's he going to find there? Relatives and maybe a future wife. On his way, on the journey, Jacob dreams. Jacob had a dream of a stairway. This is Jacob's ladder, if you've heard of Jacob's ladder. And in this dream, God speaks to him and says, I am the Lord, the God of your grandfather Abraham, and the God of your father Isaac. This is the covenant. It's the re-up of the covenant to keep the people separate, keep them unique and a special identity. God tells him, one day I will bring you back to this land, to Canaan. I will not leave you until I have finished giving you everything I've promised. The covenant. So Jacob, having received this message, he's got a long exile. This is going to be many years. When he reaches Haran, he meets his uncle Laban. His uncle Laban has several of his daughters. They're all unmarried. Jacob sees Rachel, and he's like, wow, Rachel is the woman that I want to marry. And Laban says, hey, we can make a deal. If you work for me for 7 years, you can marry Rachel. Okay. He works for 7 years. There's a big wedding. There's a lot of celebration. There's a veil over the bride. And after this is all over and the veil is lifted, it's not Rachel. He married Rachel's older sister, Leah, who was known to be kind of sore on the eyes, I think was the exact phrase, like not attractive. And when Laban is confronted by Jacob, Jacob says, you deceived me. And Laban, do you know what Laban says? Like you deceived your father? Almost like payback. So to speed up this story, skip ahead to he does work another 7 years. He does marry Rachel. The subsequent years are marked by more struggle because Rachel's not having any kids. Leah's having kids. Now, I should probably say is having multiple wives back then an ancient custom. And it definitely was. In ancient times, you'll see a lot of cultures with many wives. So with that, Rachel has kind of a panic moment as she continues to increase the number of women and wives that Jacob is going to have kids with. And they keep having more sons. Like Reuben. Reuben's name means God hears, because Leah had a son, and Leah is sad that Jacob doesn't really like her. Judah is born. His name means praise. Dan is born. His name means my struggle. And a rivalry is growing amongst the women that Rachel cannot have any kids. Finally, Rachel has a son. And that son is named Joseph. and Joseph means may God add. It's been 20 years now. There are 11 sons, about to be 12, with Benjamin coming in a minute here. But this struggle, this exile, it's time for them to go. And they leave. Rachel even tries to steal some of the local idols from her father. It's so hard for the distinct people of the Hebrew nation to be monotheistic. She wants to bring some of the idols back just in case. But on Jacob's journey, there's a defining moment, and this is the name change. Jacob has a wrestling match, but it's in a dream. Like the Jacob's ladder dream, now Jacob is wrestling with a stranger, a mysterious stranger, and in that wrestling match, it goes all night long, and it's a stalemate. He's contending and struggling, and finally the stranger zaps his hip. It pops out of socket, and now he's got a permanent limp. But Jacob says, I will not let you go unless you bless me. Unless you bless me. Well, he's wrestling with God, and now his name is getting changed to Israel. This is where the name Israel comes from. It means contender with God, like a wrestler with God. Like he is contending and fighting back. He wasn't the firstborn son, but he wanted it. He was a heel grabber. He was a deceiver. He's fighting for these things, and he's receiving them. And now he's named Israel, and that is the nation. Still a nation today. If you check your map, Israel is still a country. Well, his last son, Benjamin, is born, and Benjamin means son of my right hand. That would be born to Rachel at a time when Rachel actually dies. In the process of childbirth, Rachel dies, and Benjamin and Joseph were the only two boys from that. So these struggles, the patriarch struggles, it brings Jacob back. His name is now Israel, and he is the patriarch of this nation. He has 12 sons. The nation is going to grow, and the covenant will continue. The promise from Abraham is being carried on through his deceiving, but fighting and contending grandson, Jacob. Who is Dad's favorite son? At this point, he's got 12, and his favorite wife has died. Who is Dad's favorite son? And what do you do when you have a favorite son and you buy the most expensive type of garment? It's not just the colors in it, but the ornamentation and the symbol of this garment. Jacob, who's now Israel. Israel is the nation, is the patriarch, the grandson of Abraham. And with this gift to Joseph, it really sets him apart with some authority. The robe has an exceptional message, almost like he's the ruler, almost like he is to be held out as the new family patriarch behind 10 older brothers. They're in Shechem. They're on the trade routes and not far from the very famous Phoenician fabric trade. The Phoenicians, even the name Phoenician means purple people or purple merchants because the city of Tyre is famous for Tyrian purple. That's the most expensive dye in the world. This is a natural dye. They didn't have synthetic dyes back then. So if you wanted something unique and interesting, this was it. They would smash these little seashells, the murex, and get a tiny little drop of dye. And you do that over and over and again, and you'll eventually have enough dye to make a garment. So this is a really rare luxury. And Tyrian purple becomes the symbol of wealth, power, and royalty all over the Mediterranean world for thousands of years, actually. It's said to be worth more than its weight in gold. So Joseph's coat, if it included stripes of Tyrian purple, and other dyes are expensive as well, it just depends, this is at the highest level of elite and reinforces his elevated position in the family's eye and the covenant for the Hebrew nation. But his brothers, he's got 10 brothers that are older than him, and their resentment was palpable. His brothers hated Joseph because their father loved him more than the rest, and they couldn't even say a kind word to him. So a big complication comes at a time when Joseph and his brothers were away from dad, Joseph is having these dreams. This is a part of Joseph's story. He has two dreams that he shares with his brothers. It's something about 11 bundles of grain are bowing down to him, or 11 stars are bowing down to him. You know, that's a symbol that it's not hard to figure out. Those are the other brothers, two different dreams. And he's sharing this with the family while he's probably wearing this ruling coat. His brothers have had enough. And his brothers say, do you think you will be our king? Do you? Do you actually think you will reign over us? And this is now sparking a murderous jealousy. The opportunity for revenge comes when Jacob had sent Joseph to go out to Dothan. And at the time, the brothers see him coming. This is on the trade route. They said, hey, here comes the dreamer. Let's kill him and throw him into one of these cisterns. But the oldest brother, Reuben, intervened and saved him from this murder plot. But Joseph was stripped of his beautiful robe. He was thrown into an empty cistern. And Judah, the brother Judah, says, well, why don't we not kill him? Let's sell him. Let's get some money. Let's sell him as a slave. So instead of hurting him, let's see those Ishmaelite traders. The Ishmaelites, what is an Ishmaelite? An Ishmaelite connects back to Abraham. Ishmael is a son of Abraham. Ishmael, when Abraham's wife Sarah was getting so old, not having kids, Sarah believed she needed to get Hagar, one of her maidservants, to have a son for her husband. And that son is Ishmael. Ishmael is going to be the future of Ishmaelite and Arab people. And Arabs in today's world, if they're Muslim, you see a difference from this part of the story of the patriarchs. They view Ishmael as having a different role as a patriarch because he is the establishment of Arab and Muslim people. At this point, the Ishmaelite traders are on the trade route, and they're probably carrying purple fabric and all kinds of items, including slaves. So they buy Joseph from the brothers. And the price, you can look it up in Hammurabi's Code. And in Mari text, the going rate is 20 shekels of silver. 20 shekels of silver for the price of the favorite son. After being sold, Joseph is taken by the Ishmaelite traders over to Egypt. He arrives there and he's isolated. He's really in a foreign land now with none of his family, none of his people. So he's purchased by maybe a wealthy businessman, Potiphar, in Avaris. Avaris is a hustling and bustling city in the Delta, in the area of Goshen. It's a place where there's a lot of foreigners who live there. There's also a lot of Canaanites that live there. So Ishmaelite people, that they trade on the trade routes, they go down to Avaris in Egypt. Avaris is in the Nile Delta. It's a place where you see a lot of Canaanite settlements. And Potiphar purchases Joseph. Potiphar is a wealthy official of Egypt, a wealthy businessman, an officer of Pharaoh. And Joseph serves Potiphar well. He is skilled. Joseph is a talented person, but he gets framed and thrown into jail. It takes years for him to get out of jail. And the way he gets out of jail is once again with the dreams. One of the prisoners in the jail, the butler, the cupbearer of the Pharaoh, was in jail and had some dreams, and Joseph tells the dreams, and they ended up being true in a prophetic way. Years later, Joseph is still sitting in jail, and the cupbearer is with the Pharaoh. The Pharaoh is having these troubling dreams about a famine coming, or, their cows are shrinking up and shriveling up, and the cupbearer says, hey, go get Joseph. When Joseph interprets, says, yes, these are dreams about famine. In fact, what you have to do for 7 years is to save your crops, because following those 7 years will be a massive famine. Joseph maintained his faith even while he was in prison, even during this troubling time. He believed that the Lord was with him. He shows kindness and grants him favor in the eyes of the prison warden. That's Genesis 39. And now this opportunity is in front of Joseph to help the Pharaoh. And the Pharaoh believes that he's the man to do it. So the Pharaoh pulls him out of jail, puts him in charge of all this organization. It goes so well that when the 7 years is up and all this food is stored, a huge famine hits. In fact, it's a famine that goes beyond the Nile. It goes into Canaan. Now, Joseph has been gone more than 15 years at this point. His family back in Canaan is experiencing this famine. What are they going to do? Where do you go when you need food? In Egypt, where do you go when you need temporary safety? It's Egypt. Their family sends the brothers down to meet with the government officials of Egypt. Now, it's been so long, nobody expects to be running into each other, but there's a family reunion that happens. I'm skipping a lot of details about the way the brothers were reunited, but to see and realize what has happened as the brothers are bowing down before Joseph, because Joseph has now been elevated. He is the number 2 Pharaoh. Sorry, he's not a Pharaoh. He's the number 2 guy, second only to the Pharaoh. But he has so much authority and power, the brothers are bowing down. And when they finally come to an understanding, they realize that this might have been an evil act, but God intended it for good, because now it's time for another migration. The migration of the Hebrew people. The brothers are going to go back and pick up dad and all the people. Jacob is still alive. Israel. Sorry, let's call him Israel, because this entire nation is going to come. It's going to come to Goshen. It's going to come to the Nile Delta. They're going to settle there, and they're going to be a part of Egypt for centuries to come. In the final days, father dies, Israel dies, and the brothers are now in Egypt where there's an abundance. Now, they go one more time. They say, please, brother, don't punish us for what we have done. We are so sorry. And Joseph says, stop. No, don't be afraid of me. Who am I that I could punish you? You intended to harm me. You intended evil, but God intended it for good. He could see what it was. He has brought the Hebrew nation through the covenant, through the promise, and they now live safely in abundance in Egypt. And Joseph has sons. The family grows. And centuries later, there's going to be a little twist to this story. Have you been in a situation like Joseph? Have you been the favorite child with an extravagant gift? Let me know in the comments. Or were you on the other side? You're the left out child. You're dealing with some virtuous struggle, right? If you are the ones left out. So leave that comment, share with us that story, because this is a journey in history, virtue, and wonder. Following the Hebrew nation, this is why we need the full ancient history course. These lessons are interactive at classicalkingdoms.com, so don't miss out on some of the textbook chapters, the deep dive research that you can download. So all 72 lessons are at classicalkingdoms.com. Now let's investigate the Hyksos. The Hyksos are not Egyptians, but they do become Pharaoh. In this region where the Abrahamic people, the Hebrew nation, Israel, has settled in Goshen around Avaris. And we know there's Canaanite settlements. There's evidence. Hyksos people in this area are going to make it to the throne and become Pharaoh. Who are they? This segment, for this mystery, we're going to think they might be the Hebrews. We've already seen in another lesson the stunning tomb paintings from Beni Hassan, the Asiatics, entering Egypt, and look at the stylish clothes, the colorful fabric that they've got. There's Semitic language. There's advanced bronze working. There's evidence of a Canaanite god, Baal. Baal is a name you're going to see. It really just means Lord. It's a Hebrew, it's a Semitic word, it's Ugaritic. It's from Canaan. And so it's anytime you use the word Lord, it's like saying, who's the chief god of your town? Who's the chief god? Well, they loved the powerful storm god. He's got the wind and the lightning and the rain. So that's the most popular one. But I'm saying Canaanite evidence exists in Egypt. Some people said the Hyksos must be invaders in order to conquer the mighty Egyptians. But experts now don't believe the Hyksos were invaders. They were migrators, that they settled over time and eventually are able to make their own dynasty. So that's a mystery. But could they be the Hebrews? The way Joseph was given so much responsibility, could any of his descendants have claimed the throne because of the authority that was given to the Hebrew people? It is a fascinating mystery. Let's look at some of the clues. These archaeological discoveries, these little seals, right? Because you have to melt the wax and stamp the wax with a seal. The name of the Hyksos ruler was Yaqub-har. Yaqub is a precise Semitic form of the word Jacob, our word Jacob. So that's the Hebrew patriarch. So possibly they've adopted that name because of Jacob's importance, his role. There's a famous historian, Manetho, who talks about the Hyksos king that was named Salatus. Joseph was given a unique title, Ha-Shalit, or the Salit. It's a title that's used nowhere else, and it matches the use of that Hyksos king, who Manetho said was the first Hyksos king. Either Joseph, or it could be a descendant of Joseph. What about a Hyksos leader that had the name Yaqub-har, which means reward, and that matches with the name of Issachar, which means hired for reward, or there is a reward. So these names, and matching the timeline and the location in the area that Canaanites were settling, it's a lot to be just a coincidence. And so experts have pointed this. In fact, it's common knowledge with Egyptians that they believe Hyksos are Hebrews. Now, I'm just giving you this theory, and we know that Hyksos are powerful rulers who commanded armies, and they had the strength to take over the throne. So that is an interesting theory, and there are others. And I hope you have a sense of wonder to see, how does power fade and land into the hands of other people? But that area has a lot of mystery until around the 1600 BC, 1550 BC, when Prince Ahmose rises up and kicks out the ruling class of the Hyksos people. They are dethroned and new Egyptian dynasties begin. So the Egyptians are back on the throne. What happens to the Hyksos? What do we know? Well, we know they're not on the throne. And we know from a Bible account that a new king arose over Egypt who did not know Joseph, who did not know how the Hebrews were invited. They were guests. And so probably one of these Pharaoh kings turned the Semitic population into slaves. To enslave these people was to keep them out of power and to make sure they cannot rise up against the Egyptian authority. The Hyksos is still a mystery of history, but more and more archaeological evidence points to some interesting conclusions. So I invite you, dig into that evidence and solve that mystery. How will the Hebrew nation get home? Egypt is not their home. Let me show you two trade routes, and then I'll tease the third option. You probably already know what it is. But the Way of the Sea and the King's Highway are the two big trade routes that show us a lot about what's going on at this time. So following the expulsion of those Hyksos rulers, these routes become the vital lifelines for the commerce and the communication, the movement of people and ideas during this time. It's the Middle Kingdom. These trade routes are also bringing a lot of conflict because of the Way of the Sea. That's a coastal route. You You zip in and out of these different cities like Tyre. You're trying to get up to Tyre, Joppa. That's a strategic port that is a target for anybody who wants to control. And you already know Tyre is because purple fabric, the famous purple dye. It's not the only valuable commodity they have there. The Phoenicians are incredible traders, cedar, lumber, and dried fish, glass trinkets. Further up is Byblos. That is famous for timber, also papyrus. You know, it's where we get the word book. Biblion, that's the Greek word for book, and the word Bible. Further north, Ugarit is a real cosmopolitan port that's going to be the crucial link between all these, like to the Aegean Sea, Egypt, Mesopotamia, and the Silk Road going in. So these are important cities with awe-inspiring wealth. They are so wealthy, and they have that classic power and control type of struggle. So watch for those places in the future. But on the other side is the King's Highway. That's the overland route. Different kind of attention over there. These are all Semitic groups. They're all kind of interconnected. The Midianites, the Edomites, the Moabites. Edomites and Moabites are descendants of Lot. That's Abraham's nephew. This is the area connecting, Ishmaelites, the other side of Abraham's family tree. These groups with their ancestral ties to the whole Canaanite population, they're always going to be battling each other in addition to the trade. And it's all part of this Bronze Age migration pattern that the Hyksos were part of, the Hyksos being a collection of Canaanite people. Maybe it's the Hebrew people themselves, or at least controlled by Hebrew. But the Hyksos were on the throne. They had a dynasty in Egypt. And this epic story of Hebrew patriarchs is a family that's caught in this massive current of historical migrations and the importance of these people. And they're somehow all related. And it's more than just the trade routes. The Hebrew migration to Egypt coincides perfectly with these evidence and stories of the Hyksos. So this is the family narrative of the Abrahamic people. That's Abraham, his son Isaac, his son Jacob, Jacob's son Joseph. It is a timeless exploration. We've got sibling, rivalry, deception, and a struggle through virtue, a struggle for virtue. So the cornerstone of Western thought, religion, ideas, and the history of what goes on here. So the enslavement of the Hebrew people can be best understood as the tragic consequence of this new kingdom rise to power in Egypt. Violent expulsion of the Hyksos. Another theory, they were at least friends with the Hebrews, but the rise of this fierce Egyptian nationalism, the strength of the new kingdom, they have enslaved the Semitic people, the Jews, the Hebrews. They're not called Jews until Roman times, but this will be a recurring group. It's history. It's classical kingdoms. It's coming soon. But we've got the family favoritism for this lesson, the deception of the birthright, Jacob's gift of that beautifully dyed robe. These events are there to test our character, right? To learn through these characters, it's about us. It's about you. It's a massive historical migration, and it explains the Hebrew nation, connects to the three religious groups that are so large in this world: the Jewish people, the Christians, the Muslims. It's more than just those powerful rulers and honored guests that were Hyksos, Hebrew, Canaanites, and become powerless slaves. But what was intended for evil is woven into the greater plan to preserve this people, to set the stage for their destiny. What is that covenant promise of Abraham's people? Thank you for taking the time to learn something that matters in all of history, and that includes your history, some classical truth for the journey. Because kingdoms rise and fall, power fades, but virtue endures.